everybody, if all you have to do is watch a few of these Illuminati propaganda films to realize that if you do work for these people, they will stab you in the back almost as a law of nature. So anybody who thinks that working with them is a good move, wait until what happens when you're no longer useful, and see how quickly they'll torture and kill you and everyone you care about.
Well,
nobody is immune from that.
It's even actually worse than that. The onion that makes up what we're talking about has basically 4 levels to it. The outer level was notified at the same day that our package landed in the international court that they were no longer under their protection. Over a period of a few months, there's been several thousand resignations, house arrests. There's been tons of banks closed or closed for a couple days and reopened. You name it. Now, this is not just bankers. This is also financiers, your exchange people,
oh, yeah.
sort of thing.
I cover it on my website. There's 358 resignations documented by somebody going under the anonymous name American Kabuki. And there's a link for every single one of them, and they're all in chronological order. And this includes, on February 29th, the resignation of James Murdoch, Rupert Murdoch's son, from the executive chairman position of News International Corporation, which is Fox.
Yeah, that's basically called a protection move. He was not. It wasn't a question of his protection as much as it was in terms of them protecting him, as much as it was his own protection, because he didn't have that much to do in terms of the illegalities that Dad pulled.
Right.
So he's not all that bad one way or the other in comparison to some of them.
But to get to the deeper grain of what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, I'm getting that you had this package delivered to The Hague, and that was the critical moment in which those on the inside were aware that these mass arrests that have been planned ever since the 5-inch document you saw in 1979 could actually move forward by the will of the civilians in terms of common law going back to the Code of Hammurabi and 11,000-year-old documents.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
What this did was, when they received it and it got past their agents who work at The Hague, what it did was they knew that it had arrived because that person was made aware. There was nothing they could do about it. So consequently, their protection evaporated. This is like steam on a hot highway, and the sun comes out, and poof, it's gone. Okay, well, there's thousands of resignations in Europe to date. Now, in 1 week, and I'm talking last week, there was 450 resignations, retirements, and this stuff, and 200 arrests.
That's a staggering number.
That's 650 people involved in finance. Now, here's the difference. Those people under house arrest or who have been taken into custody or who retired and are staying at home are considered not very important one way or the other. They are primarily figureheads and not much more.
Right.
The difference is those who were arrested and those who are being arrested and those who are going to be arrested, that's the second layer of the onion.
This is why we're not seeing a lot of newspaper and website articles about this, because there's no accountability of these people getting arrested in the outside world because they don't have a public position.
Well, not only that, but the mainstream media is controlled by them.
Exactly.
Therefore, you're not going to hear this.
Yeah, and I documented that extensively in my investigation, Financial Tyranny. It goes back to Operation Mockingbird and traceable information regarding the Masonic Order and guys who in 1826 were saying, yeah, we own the press and we own the judiciary and we own the police and we own the government and F you if you don't like it.
Yeah, basically there's nothing you can do about it. People have alluded to the fact that there's something out there everybody's afraid of in terms of industrialists, people of power. This is basically what they were afraid of.
That's Woodrow Wilson's quote in his book, The New Freedom. Yes, very important quote.
Exactly. Now, the thing is that What people didn't realize was the limitation of, you mentioned the G5, I'm going to say the G20.
Okay.
And the reason I say the G20 is that some of these nations have not quite come to the light yet that they got a real serious problem, or how serious it is, and they're not fully under the control or fully beholding to or involved with the G5. So they're kind of on the edge, and they can go either way. And the basis of this is very simple. Several things have happened. Number one, we convinced enough people to abide by documentation done the correct way, and we submitted it to The Hague in terms of a majority of states, which basically set a precedent for being free and for military-civilian action. The military backs us up by way of federal marshals who contact local law enforcement, and local law enforcement actually makes the arrests.
I'm sorry, just so that people understand, are federal marshals members of the Army National Guard or the Air Force, or what are federal marshals?
Federal marshals are federal law enforcement officers, basically. Now,
okay.
The definition, though, is by present authority, which puts them in the trick bag of having to follow the edict of what we've done in terms of the will of the people to go along with the military plan.
If you wanted to meet a federal marshal, what offices would you go to? I mean, are they FBI? Are they CIA? Are they Homeland Security?
They're on their own.
Okay.
That's the nice thing about a federal marshal. He's relatively independent of most things. Okay? There are some that say, I'm in charge of them, and they're liable to get a strong argument that only depends on the situation. In some situations, a citizen is in charge of the FBI or the CIA, depending on the situation. It varies. But basically, a federal marshal is a federal employee of the current power.
Okay.
Okay, so the notification process, what it did was it authorizes the military to contact the federal marshals, to contact the local authorities, to actually take the actions of arrest. Now,
okay, this might piss some people off, but I really want to clear this up. Do these marshals exist in different offices? I mean, how would you find one? What kind of offices would they be employed by?
Well, National Security Administration would probably be the end office if you wanted to really look them up in that relationship.
Okay.
Because they are primarily tasked in such a way that a federal marshal can go across a border when the border is common to the country he comes from. So you could go from, say, Arizona or New Mexico into Mexico if need be, and you would have law enforcement authority there.
Would these marshals potentially be employed in a police station? Would they be at the police station?
No, they have their own offices. Federal marshals' offices. There's a variety of them.
Okay.
They have a combination of different duties.
I don't mean to sound like an idiot. I'm just cautious to make sure that people don't think that you invented the term federal marshal and that it's just some guy on the internet reading websites and, oh yeah, I'm a marshal and here's the little badge that I made.
Yeah, I bought one of those yesterday down at the dollar store. I understand what you're saying.
This is real. These guys are federally employed.
Well, you've heard of federal air marshals.
Yeah, they're on the airplane.
He is a federal marshal. He just simply is on air duty.
Okay.
That's all the difference is. It is. And these guys, there's a lot of these guys out there. They're very well trained. They're very knowledgeable.
And they're not
extraordinarily professional.
And they're not soldiers.
No, that's the neat part about this. They're in between the civilian and the military.
Right.
Okay, now, you've got those three entities, the military, federal marshal, and local law enforcement. What our paperwork did was to give the military civilian authority to contact the federal marshals, to contact local law enforcement, and have a big party for all these arrests.
Wow.
This does not include any military coup, does not include any military action, and it does not include martial law. None of that is going to happen. What is going to happen, you will see federal marshals backing up local law enforcement, taking people into custody, and there may be a stand of troops in case they need extra bodies to snatch somebody that decides to run, or there's a whole bunch of people in a building, and they didn't know that there was 7,000 of them in there. You're going to need extra hands in order to incarcerate all these people, put them on the bus, and send them wherever they need to go. So this is the military will act in a backup fashion in some ways.
Does that violate posse comitatus?
No, because the military is not acting as a police force directly.
They're assisting a police action.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
And the police action is one of control of and or prevention of rioting or general civil disobedience that would call for a police situation. These are all, you have to look all this stuff up. A regular protest of citizenry basically can be met with general police force, but when the people that called out the National Guard on several occasions during things that were a problem have found that they acted illegally. And they were told, don't ever do that again. There were a lot of people who were informed that this is a no-no and this is okay, and don't you cross that line.
Sure.
Okay, so you've got these three entities. Now, back to the plan. The plan stipulates several things. One, you're not going to have police state. You're not going to have the military in control. It's not martial law. They're not going to come in the house and snatch you up. That ain't happening. What's happening is this. The intent and purpose of this plan was to minimize the chaos involved in the action. Now, when you arrest several thousand people in a city, it's going to create a little bit of a hubbub. People are going to see the military. They're going to see a lot of policemen doing the job. And this will be on video. I mean, you're going to have CNN and all the local news people. Everybody's going to have some kind of video of this stuff.
And I assume these policemen will probably be in riot gear, which will have black uniforms and scary-looking stuff.
Maybe. It depends on whether or not they expect problems with who they're dealing with. Generally, no, because it's not a riot situation.
Okay.
It could turn that way. They'll bring the gear. I mean, it'll be in the trunk most likely. Most of your people that have been responsible for the problems are office-type people. They're not necessarily physically active or capable. And to go along with that, they're not going to torture them or, oh, he fell down 14 flights of stairs or any of that.
Well, and I've heard from my own insider that there are an astonishing number of very deeply embedded moles who are much closer to these people than they ever thought anybody would get, and actually not have been outed. Exactly.
Now, there's a couple of things in this. First of all, the gist of the plan is to not create chaos. In other words, you're going to have public announcements. People such as yourself and myself will be notified approximately a day ahead of schedule. In terms of putting this on the internet so it can go viral.
Okay.
I would imagine, doing this interview, this is going to get kind of viral. Well,
very much so. Some of my videos have millions of views, and this will be distributed throughout hundreds, if not thousands, of different blogs and reposted. And if we let people know that there's going to be a one-day window of notification, you can absolutely guarantee that there will be a massive tidal wave of publicity once this moment arrives.
Well, that moment arrives when we are given the green light to notify our people, the ones that we have contact with. At that point, then, it is to go viral on the internet, and we're to try to access as much mainstream media, be that AM radio or whatever, doesn't matter, but it's as much as we can.
Now, I would imagine that the oligarchs, who are the bad guys, are going to be hearing this and saying to people and getting them to listen to this, getting their soldiers and their mercenaries to listen to this and say, you got to get these